Hi guys, welcome to this session. It's going to be the last time I work on this cloud drawing, this cloud sketching drawing. So sketching is sort of the operative word. We don't want to go for a completely refined drawing. This is more something you can maybe do if you were sitting outdoors and working from life. So in terms of time, that limits us to maybe, a few hours at most if you're working in a single session, so if you're working on the same piece continuously. If you went back out and kind of sketched from the same spot, you could do longer pieces, just like you could if you were painting. But we're kind of assuming that this is something you might do within an hour or two, something like that. So today the only difference is I'm using a slightly harder piece of charcoal that I've found. So you can either use graded charcoal, so this is HB I'm using rather than the super soft, sort of almost 2B charcoal that I was using for the first couple of sessions. If you haven't seen the first two sessions, I recommend watching those, just because they sort of go over how we got to this stage. And they're not super long, so you'll be able to catch up in time. They sort of show the entire process if you do it that way. And as always, I recommend subscribing to the channel, so you kind of stay up to date with all this kind of content. This is going to be the last video before the summer holiday here in the UK, but we'll be back in the autumn, or the end of the summer at least, with some new stuff for you guys. And there's always, not only are there tutorial videos like this from myself and other tutors, but there's also interviews with artists and students and all sorts from OCAD. So yeah, definitely worth signing up and keeping up to date with what's going on. But yeah, this is the final session, so if you watch the first two, you'll kind of know what's going on. And essentially, we're working pretty similarly to what we were doing last week. So last week we sort of were building on the initial established forms, starting to work on some bigger forms, and basically this week we're just kind of again moving into smaller sets of forms. So I'm starting to, you can sort of see I've worked around the portions of these largest cloud, the different bits that sort of bulge in and out, and I'm mostly smoothing and just increasing the gradients, so you can see this kind of sense of dark to light across it. And what I'm really paying attention to is, where is it dark, where is it light. If it's going from darker to lighter in a particular direction, I'm kind of just increasing the detail, the level of detail in those gradients. So that starts to make the cloud feel softer, more sort of rounded, working that way. Same here, so I can just sort of start to roll the form just a little bit more at the shadow edge. There's a really definite sense of a shadow on this cloud form kind of rolling towards the left, so just increasing the turn out of that. As I mentioned in the previous few lessons, if you do want to work from the same reference as me, you don't have to. You can do the same, take the same sort of approach with a different set of clouds, or working from whatever reference you like. But if you do want the same reference, you can access it just using the link in the description below. You may have already read that, but just in case you haven't, just check the YouTube description, and that's got a link to the reference on our blog. So we've got this dark portion of the cloud. Well, it's actually a separate cloud, sort of streaking or sort of smearing in front of the primary cloud. And it's really fuzzy at the edges, so it's not really got any definite form. It's more in silhouette. It's just generally gets fuzzy at the edges of it. So it feels a little bit different to the sort of cumulonimbus, big fluffy clouds that predominate the scene. Same goes for this one here. So this actually has a little bit more of a sense of structure to it, but it is distinct. So it's hovering in front of the major kind of primary cloud in the center of the composition. But it's a little bit crisper. It's not as fuzzy actually. So try to get that sharpness at the top of it. You can see I'm also using the eraser as well, where I need to neat things a little bit here and there. Through here I just want to kind of brighten up slightly that set of clouds. I think I went slightly too heavy during the last session, so I'm just sort of rectifying that. So I'm not capturing like all the little ripples in the cloud, obviously, because there's a lot going on. But through this process, you can see I'm starting to kind of get in and refine a lot of the shapes, the cloud shapes that we can see. There's a lot of, you always get a lot of interesting gradients, transitions in cloud forms. A lot of sort of complex masking where they sort of, one cloud blocks out another cloud and so on, creating some interesting shapes. But you can see the smoothing process is starting to increase the sense of the correct texture of the cloud at least. It's obviously not, you know, you're always going to go for a fairly sort of soft, fuzzy-ish texture. Even if the outside boundary of the cloud is quite quite sharp, you'll generally have a have softer forms, softer shapes around and within the cloud itself. Yes, I'm getting pretty happy with the general forms in the cloud. As the sort of central aspect, I want it to be neater or more rendered than the rest of the drawing, and it's sort of definitely at that point now. So I'm going to jump just down below here. There are some sort of interesting things going on in some of the sky behind the cloud as well. That little strip that I've got. I've not done a huge deal with it just yet, so I'm going to start partially smoothing it out and partly just adding some of the sort of, basically there are these cloud forms behind. So I want to work on them and smooth out. That's pretty good, I think, for that sky behind. Just kind of moved across now to these clouds. And I've not been, if you look at the reference, I've not necessarily been totally accurate to it. But that doesn't bother me too much, especially if we're kind of imagining that you'd be drawing this sort of sketch from life. You're never going to have a cloud like this be visible in the exact same shape for longer than a few minutes. So you're always going to have to be sort of merging different forms that you see. So especially with clouds, which can be so flexible in terms of form, or the specific nature of the individual forms. What you want to look for is the general feel of the cloud. So like, does it feel correct for that particular cloud that you're looking at? And that's your sort of primary concern. And just a little bit of skimming over this. Sky behind, just to start to even it out slightly as well. And darken it a little bit. Again, this is sort of shifting a bit from what we see in reality, but makes for a sort of more dramatic scene if the cloud is really sort of brightly lit against the sky. I think it's quite nice. So those sorts of artistic decisions, let's say, you can start to focus more on once you get to the end point of a sketch like this. I'm just going to work on it for a few moments more. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it, I think, and I'm going to pretty much stop there. So yeah, that's it for this little series, little kind of mini series of three lessons. So if you haven't watched the first two, definitely watch them if you want to work alongside on your own piece and start from scratch. And check out all the other videos on our page as well, and follow us too. So we're going to have a bit of a break from, well, certainly I'm going to be having a break from posting over the summer holidays, but as soon as the term starts back up again here in the UK in September, we'll be back with a new series of hopefully some nice, exciting, engaging lessons for you guys. But yeah, that's it for today and for this school year. But I'll definitely be seeing you guys soon.